What's good with YouTube? You already know this is Big Flacco from ACP, a convict's perspective, man. Hope everybody's having a positive day. So, before we get into the video, let's hit the like, subscribe, comment, do all those things to support this channel, and hit that bell notification for future fire content. Now, I was watching a video, and it was about, dropout gangs, which one had done the most damage to the Nuestra Familia. Now, there's a lot of stuff that was wrong in the video, right? I'm going to first and foremost say the one thing that was 100% right was the dropouts that had turned informant, snitched, and whatnot have done the most damage to the NF. That's the only accurate statement that I can sit there and stand behind with that video, man. And I think that there's a few things that people need to understand. None of these groups that you can call dropout groups, I don't call them dropout groups because very few of them were ever carnales, right? Degenerate groups, you would call them. None of these degenerate groups have ever done any type of damage to the NF at all. As far as anything that you could really sit there and pinpoint that affected them on a day-to-day basis, interference or anything like that, that's never occurred. Now, you had those like, Shadow Lopez, Chongo, other individuals like that who got pretty much the bad taste from the NF or got found, expelled from the organization or, pushed away, that became the biggest threats to the NF at one time out there in the streets. These individuals weren't pushing no degenerate factions or anything like that. They were running solo with those that rocked with them. These guys were the biggest threat because it was personal, okay? And these are facts. And these guys were more of a threat because they had came from the active side and never went to an SNY, a lot of them. They were in the shoe, just slammed down and isolated, right? And so they weren't pushing the SNY agenda yet. Some of them have flipped, some of them didn't. But they were out there. They were the most dangerous that I've ever ran into out there in the streets. Shadow from Salinas was killed out there. Okay. Black Dre from Hayward, Fabian from Hayward, they were out there doing the most fucking bad out there as far as against actives, right? Both those individuals were knocked down. Chongo got snatched up and arrested. Otherwise, either he was going to get knocked down or he was going to knock someone down. The boy was with the business, okay? But as far as any of the degenerate factions, you had Fast Eddie and Corey Lopez and Nono Reina and Mono and all these cats that had been around, had done time, and had basically a common belief. And they were putting in work a few times out there in the streets. They were able to infiltrate, but even then they didn't do that much damage. You know what I'm saying? So it's always been one of those situations that when those targets would come out there, we'd get wind of it when I was active. This is me speaking when I was active. We'd get wind of it, and we would do our due diligence to do our proper research. And if it was in our interest to knock someone down, we try to knock them down, or we'd knock them down. Now, it was very rare when the Riders and New Flowers came out that they were ever going to run into a carnal, okay? So, their main opposition would have been the NR at the time, Nuestra Raza, the Norteño Soldados, the ones that were supposed to be at the forefront. These are the ones that, at times, that Snoop used to bump heads with. And so he did not, at times, like the way they conducted themselves. There were people like Tito that set the bad examples. The same thing with the Flowers was a little bit different. A lot of those dudes were experienced. They were educated, but they fell in bad standings. Therefore, they created a wall to protect themselves, right? But they also had a vision and idealism that people gravitated towards. You know what I'm saying? That people didn't want to rock some of the stuff that they were seeing politically. And that's what made the New Flowers in the 90s kind of attractive, and as well as the Riders. It was that they didn't have to play the politics. I doubt that any of these groups would have ever really grew in numbers, right? Except for they went to the SNY side. See, when SNY created, it gave these groups a home. And I think after the Pelican Bay incident with Snoop is pretty much one of the things that led him to take his people that way. And he was able to recruit a whole long list of other individuals. Now, the New Flowers, you got two different factions. You got the ones that still function within basic Norteño rules. Check paperwork, stay GP, these are my enemies, and that's it. And you got those that are on the SNY side that have a different agenda as well. The thing is that both of them are well-educated, school, and they kind of have a low profile, right? But the SNY side may be a little bit more out there. But see, the New Flowers were never supposed to go SNY. There were some beasts from these SNY groups, of course, man. Nuestra Costa, look at Scrappy. All those cats from Nuestra Costa, a lot of those dudes are straight beast killers, They don't over-recruit. The Riders, they have some hitters and they have some dudes that are straight fucking, it is what it is, right? Same with like the 2-5ers. You got some 2-5ers that straight hitters and you got some that are just fucking, they're there and just been recruited. And so it's kind of hard to sit there and say, okay, these groups are doing the most damage, because some of these groups, the manpower they have, are not anybody that these traditional organizations want even in their circles, man. They're dudes that are where they need to be. And that's the truth. So a lot of these groups, you're talking about a small handful of individuals that are actually with those activities. How much damage are they going to be able to do? Not very much, because they're not going to be put on the main lines. How much damage are they going to be able to do on the streets? Not that much, because the ones that are real ones are the ones that are fucking doing life, that are on level 4 yards. Not the ones that pro from level 2s and 1s and 3s and whatnot that are SOYs. Apparently they are where they are because they weren't putting enough work in. You know what I'm saying? And so it's always been that way, that they've never been able to accumulate or do any damage to any of these groups at all ever on the streets. Yeah, they may have had some issues where they've knocked down some actives out there, but a lot of times these actives are not even priority targets. It's just some funk or issue that they just have that they just deal with on the spot. Now, Lencho, as an active Carnal, did get hit when he was on Courtesy Pro in Slims Valley, when a Degenerate, a new flower, I guess you can call it, right, befriended them. Okay? But overall, like I said, man, the truth of it is, right, is none of these groups really ever made a dent or an issue as far as to cause any trouble or any fucking, war with the NF. These are 100% facts, man. Even the regiment crews that got out there, they never ever did any damage to any of the regiments that were out there. A lot of times, man, these dudes would start to hide out there on the streets. They weren't, really boisterous that they were out there. You come across some that were. Like I said, you had, like I said, Fabian, Black Dre, Little Joe, and all those cats that were in Hayward. They had that against the grain shit going on, right? Then you had some cats in San Jose for a minute that were more discreet, because they knew out there that if they were out there on Front Street, they were going to probably get knocked down, because there were certain individuals when they got out that their names were being passed around that if we encountered, we got to knock them down, But there was those ones that just didn't give a fuck. Like Chongo was one of those ones. Chongo was with the fucking business. As an NF, that was just recently deemed no good, he was bringing the heat back at the homeboys, and he had a squad of individuals that were rocking with him. I mentioned Corey Lopez, Shadow. He's another one out there in Salas. Z-Bop was out there doing his thing as well for a minute. And by then, the recruitment to some of these SMY groups, as far as behind the SMY yards and whatnot, they were just recruiting a lot of anybody's for a minute. And everybody knows that. That's the truth. That's why there's a lot of individuals that made these groups look bad, because they just recruited anybody. They've kind of changed that. Like I said, like the Zapatistas, they got none but hitters. The Nuestra, they got none but hitters. The certified riders that are on those level 4 yards, a lot of those dudes are straight fucking hitters. Okay? But when you start to get into level 2, level 3, and these dudes claim to be that they're this and that, a lot of times those dudes were not really, they weren't relevant, like I said, man. They weren't doing any damage when they came home. They weren't putting any work. I've never heard of them trying to fucking, run interference or anything, because we used to catch wind of a lot of stuff that was going on, but basically it was like a joke. You know what I'm saying? It's like, okay, this dude here, okay, he did this and did that. How we gonna really consider this dude even a fucking threat? You know what I'm saying? He was scared to go to prison the first time. What makes me think he's gonna try to put in work now? You know what I mean? I think the real ones that I've been around, as far as that reached certain milestones as far as on the active side, right? I think that there's too much of a pride issue there, that they wouldn't want to ever, join any of these SMY groups, even though I've heard that there's been those that have. But I don't know how that's going to work, because that means that they would have had to debrief to be out there on those yards. But in any event, right, I think the most people, like I said, it's a pride thing. Why try to be part of something when you were already this? Now, I get those that, were, part of these groups when they were on the main line. And, the 2-5ers, they've been around since like the early 90s, like 91, the New Flowers, the Riders, all these other groups. I get it, because it wasn't their decision to bring these groups into the SMI side. A lot of them were on the main line still, okay? But once they're, like the new recruits that they've recruited all throughout these years, it's kind of hard for me to understand. Now, I get if you're on a level 4, 180, it's a little bit different, but the level 2, level 3, it's hard to take serious, some of the stuff that goes on these yards. You know what I'm saying? Because it's just, man, like, some of these dudes never been anywhere. And now all of a sudden that they think that they are something because they are part of a group. And the tendencies that come from some of these yards and the way people play and whatnot, it's unbecoming of someone that used to be something else. Let's just put it that way. It's almost like at times, right, that because of the status or standings one has and the work that they put in, the things that they did on the active side, right, it almost seems like sometimes there'll be those that are on the SNY side that really take that for, like, what do you call, they're jealous of it sometimes, because sometimes some people never had no career. You know what I'm saying? And that's just the reality of it. They got to county jails or prisons and they dropped out early. You know what I mean? For whatever reason. A lot of times it's because they're scared. Let's just keep it 100. They figure it's going to be safer on the SNY side. A lot of people who dropped out during those years thought that going to the SNY side, that it was going to be easier, no problems. And if it went to the GP side, they were going to have nothing but problems, so they took it there. Some dudes thought they were going to get hit, intercepted kites with their name on it. Instead of taking whatever they had coming, they locked it up. So like I said, people have different reasons why they got to where they got, you know, and people are going to have different reactions about this. It's just, to me, it's something that I never could really, want to be part of. You know what I'm saying? Because to me, it's almost like some of these are the ones that never made it. Now, there's some good dudes that are part of these groups, right? Solid riders and whatnot. But there's also a lot of dudes that would have never made it on that active side. Some of them say, okay, well, I never did this or did that. Well, to be honest with you, were never given that opportunity, some of you guys, man. Sometimes with the case alone, they don't even have a chance, right? And at the same token, they were never part of nothing. So who's to say what they would do if it was in different shoes, right? And these are, individuals that really never even tried or made it on these lines. You know what I'm saying? So, some of the stuff that people try to bring up and try to, look at and try to advocate and promote, it just is shocking. You know what I'm saying? That's why, like I said, I'm not against any of these groups. I let everybody tell their truths and their stories. But the truth is the truth. And it's for someone who put years in, it's hard for me to fucking look at anything as far as anybody ever having any lasting effect, as far as war towards the NF. It just didn't exist. The NF wasn't even tripping off any of these groups. They were just a thorn in the side that for the North Days for them to deal with, because they were not going to run any interference. They weren't going to get close to any of them. The closest one that anybody got to was when I think Scrappy was able to hit Joe Jeff before he became a carnal. A lot of people are misguided and think that, big homies just became big homies without putting in work. Most of the individuals I know that rose to the ranks of bro and C's, we all put in work, man. I mean, we put in major work. We were on lines where we were fucking outnumbered, you know what I'm saying? We were the ones doing the pegadas, doing all the shit. And later gained our status, as we, hit the shoes and got recognized. So you're not talking about individuals that are running these yards as being weak links. I remember me, Half did, Lucifer from Watsonville, and I forgot who else it was, Sorteño, I think, from Greenfoss, right? We're looking at the yard, we're like, okay, there's a few Northerners, right? But for the most part, it was all in souls, right? And we're like, man, you take us 16 right here and put us on any fucking yard, we could fucking turn that yard over. Because that's the type of fucking caliber of individuals that we were at that time in the system. That's the line that we were pushing. And, that's the truth. Now, years later, look what happens, you know what I mean? But people forget that a lot of us were definitely with that action, and whether it was a political decision or whatever it may have been, something happened that made us make different choices. Okay? So I always felt that the individuals that had beef or issues with the NF were the most threat or danger to them. Whether that's on them telling or whether that's on them bringing some heat, some pistols or whatnot, or a metal piece. Those are the ones that I felt were always the ones that were more of a threat towards the NF. You see, on the active side, a lot of times the piece of shits that are out there are overshadowed because of the way that the homeboys function. On the SNY side, like I said, there's some good dudes that are part of those groups, but there's also a lot of pieces of shits. And it's not overshadowed. It's all right in front of you. You see it for what it is. It's like people have spoken on Mateo, right? Mateo's done what he's done for whatever reasons, right? But that dude was a fucking legend in his times, people forget. Was. Okay? He put in more work than fucking 99% of anybody that speaks on him. 99.9%. And the people in Salas looked up to him. You know what I'm saying? And for whatever reason, it has to be probably something political, something personal happened to where he made the choices that he made. Some may look at him as weak, but at the end of the day, that's still a dangerous man. Baby Joker. Okay? He had the debrief to be out there on those lines, right? That man's a straight fucking hitter. Straight with it. You know what I'm saying? So don't let the smooth taste fool you. You know what I'm saying? Like I said, these other groups, there's dudes within those groups that are looked at as a threat. But the overall group has never ever been looked at as a threat by any of these groups. Just that their numbers are growing and they're taken away from their manpower. But the truth is, a lot of times, what's being discussed behind the scenes is a lot of these dudes, they don't want to in these lines. A lot of them have proved that they're pieces of shit anyways, or trash. Now, not any rat is going to be the most dangerous to the NF, right? But those that hold key information or positions, right, that put them in a prone position to where they're vulnerable. It's just, like I said, politics, like I said, are very dirty. People don't always understand them. People think that they understand that life, but they truly don't. And it's why it's hard sometimes when people think that they could speak on some of this stuff. They don't get it. They don't know it. They only know what the end result is, but they don't know all the in-betweens because they were never on that level to do so. So therefore, it's easy to attack. And I notice there is a difference. A lot of the SMY groups, they just have nothing but hate for the homeboys, right? Where some of the individuals, former Canales, Flaco from Santa Rosa and all these other individuals, right, who were fucking true believers, fucking dangerous individuals, right? It's not that they have any hate or love lost towards the organization. It's just that there was members within that group that fucked a lot of shit up, that crossed a lot of people up. A lot of people would wish that they're not in the situations that they're in. There could have been a lot of good that could have been done, people feel. But when you put the wrong people in power, that's the backlash effect that you have with it. So those, to me, are going to be the most dangerous individuals because it's maybe them against those within that group. But the overall, and like I said, the love for the homeboys doesn't change. The carnalism that they used to have, the being part of a strong household, the relationships you build. But it's those that fucking ruined it, right? That are within these groups that maybe some people may have issues with. There was dudes in the 80s and 90s, right, that were straight beasts, that were dropouts, that weren't going to go to PCRs. They were going GP. And they were dangerous motherfuckers, man. I'll tell you that right now. In any event, anybody could be dangerous or badass at any time when you're in prison, man. But let's just keep it real, man. You know what I'm saying? The NF has never took any of these SMI groups serious. They were just a thorn in their side. Basically a thorn in interrupting Norteño households in prisons for a few years until they eventually took it to the SMI side. They've never done any damage to the streets, which is the whole purpose for the NF, is to build on the streets for the organization. Anyways, I seen a video on it earlier. It gave me the idea to do this video, and like I said, the video is not wrong, but there's parts of it that are wrong. You know what I'm saying? But that's the individual's perspective that maybe hasn't had as much of experience, on the mainline or GP side to really understand all the intricate details that goes on. They only know what they've been told. You know what I'm saying? It's different when you've experienced it. A whole lot different. Just like I really can't speak on a lot of the SNY stuff. I've never gone SNY. I've never been SNY. And that doesn't make me better than any other man. Okay? I'm just speaking my truth. What I've gone through and what I've seen and what I experienced. I don't forget where I come from. That's why it's hard for me to interact. If people conduct themselves in certain ways that would be PC behavior, then I really have a hard time interacting with people. And a lot of that is what sometimes you may see from time to time. So therefore, it's easier for me to step to the side because I never want to be part of that shit. I always said, once my situation happened, I was never going to be one of those ones that was going to sit there and talk shit about the homies and fucking, run my mouth and all of a sudden act like a fucking peseta. I just couldn't do it. Now, bear in mind, my opinion of all this, I was there when these groups first started. You know what I'm saying? When we were hearing about them. I was there when discussions came out about some of these individuals. and it was really hard to take, like I said, any of them really serious at that time. You know what I'm saying? There was a whole different level of the game, and some of the lower tier members that they had recruited at that time, just like I said, no knock on any individual that got illegitimately recruited from any of these groups, but just that level of how you say it, level of training, experience and all that stuff just wasn't there. It just was not a threat. It was just something that just was there. Okay, they're over there. Oh well. You know what I'm saying, we got business to take care of out here. If they get in the way, they get knocked down. That's just how it was. And I've been in situations where we dealt with people who were causing havoc out in the streets. You know what I'm saying? Which I don't discuss on this channel for reasons as that be. But like I said, there's a lot more to my story that people don't know, and the things I was involved in that I just don't always put everything out there. You know what I'm saying? Anyways, things have changed, I guess. This YouTube stuff alone, man. Look at it. I never thought this would ever happen. So, man, maybe the main lines have changed as well. Maybe the caliber of manpower on those lines have gotten soft as well. I don't know. Like I said, that's why I tell everybody, with all this shit that you see and hear and witness, I wouldn't want to go to prison if I was a youngster. I'd want to stay the fuck away from it, man. It gives you every incentive to not want to commit crimes because there's so much BS and just fucking nonsense and just bullshit, man, that goes on nowadays. I will say this. If they are to fully integrate these yards with these SNY groups and these actives at the same time, that's when you're going to see where people stand. That's when you're going to see individuals, if the Cardinal's a treacherous Cardinal, or was he just fucking recruited for some other reasons? Because a lot of dudes have gotten laxed based upon the fact that they hold that status. You know what I'm saying? And, yeah, let's just say it's going to get interesting, man. Anyways, I don't want to keep on going on and on, man. Like I said, respect to everybody, man. The whole point is maybe people not having to make these choices, man. The gangs are bad. Whether you're on the active SNY side, nothing's going to come good of it. You know what I'm saying? You got to do what's best for you and your family. With that said, I'm gone.